Welcome to this explainer. You know, we hear the name USA PATRIOT Act all the time when talking about national security, but its impact on the actual financial system is absolutely profound. Today, we're going to dive into how this single historic piece of post-9/11 legislation completely rewired global banking and transformed anti-money laundering controls. It essentially took a system that was primarily focused on basic reporting and turned it into an aggressive, intelligence-driven network designed to actively hunt down illicit finance.
All right, let's quickly hit our roadmap. We're looking at the post-9/11 shift, how the law changed customer verification, securing those global banking channels, the incredible power of information sharing, and finally, how all of this acts as the cornerstone for modern AML.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the post-9/11 financial shift, moving from a reactive system to a proactive one.
There was a massive, high-contrast shift between the old system and the new. Before 2001, the anti-money laundering, or AML environment, was basically just a narrow reporting framework. Banks were kind of just filing paperwork when something looked a bit off. But the Act, it completely flipped the script. It thrust the entire system into an expansive, risk-based, intelligence-linked control regime. The expectation totally changed overnight. Literally no more standing on the sidelines. Institutions had to actively understand their risk and hunt for illicit activity.
The ultimate goal here, straight from FinCEN, was super clear: strengthen U.S. measures to prevent, detect, and prosecute international money laundering and terrorist financing. It wasn't about cleaning up the mess after the fact anymore. It was about stopping the money before it even moved. This meant higher-risk foreign jurisdictions suddenly faced intense, special scrutiny. Bank records became actual weapons for investigators, and institutions had to actively hunt down financial crime.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, verifying the customer, and the anatomy of Section 326. Think about the last time you opened a bank account. You know the drill, right? Handing over your ID, your social security number, verifying your address. Well, that everyday friction is the direct legacy of Section 326, which formally defined the Customer Identification Program, or CIP. The Act drew a line in the sand. Knowing exactly who is entering the financial system is the absolute bare minimum baseline of security. You simply cannot have a credible anti-money laundering framework if you don't confidently know who your customer is the exact second they walk through the door.
And FinCEN's official guidance makes this crystal clear. It outright requires covered financial institutions to maintain a customer identification program. This was, for all intents and purposes, the death knell for truly anonymous banking in the United States. Verifying identity went from being a nice-to-have best practice to a strict, non-negotiable legal mandate. Simply put, if they can't verify you, they literally cannot bank you, period.
Moving on to Section 3, securing global banking channels, and the anatomy of Section 312. Now we're getting into the really high-stakes world of global money movement. Section 312 basically demands extreme, rigorous due diligence on foreign correspondent and private banking accounts. If you think of correspondent banking as sort of a VIP pass for a foreign bank to use a U.S. bank's services, well, you can see how that's the main artery for cross-border illicit finance if the transparency just isn't there.
Why does this matter so much? The FFIEC nails it. The goal is to prevent money laundering through accounts that give foreign financial institutions a base for moving funds right through the U.S. system. Honestly, weak oversight in correspondent banking is just a massive backdoor for criminals. If a corrupt foreign bank holds a correspondent relationship with a major U.S. bank, bad actors can wash their money right down Wall Street. Section 312 was designed to slam that backdoor permanently shut by forcing U.S. banks to rigorously vet the foreign banks they do business with.
All right, on to Section 4, the power of sharing, and the anatomy of Section 314. This is, without a doubt, a real game changer.
Before the Patriot Act, banks operated in total silos. They were terrified of privacy laws, and law enforcement was really struggling to get info from the banking sector. Section 314 completely rewrote the rulebook. On one hand, Section 314A enables a top-down flow, allowing law enforcement to rapidly blast out requests to banks to find specific accounts. Then, on the flip side, we have Section 314B. This creates a horizontal flow, legally letting banks share intelligence directly with one another to hunt down illicit activity.
The big takeaway here? Banks were no longer operating blind, stuck in their own little isolated risk bubbles. This was a massive pivot toward making financial crime compliance genuinely collaborative. It spun up an active, networked intelligence web. Like if a money launderer tries to move dirty funds from Bank A to Bank B, Bank A and Bank B can now actually pick up the phone, so to speak, communicate, piece together the broader criminal network, and report it together. It's a true team effort now.
Finally, let's hit Section 5, the modern AML cornerstone, and see exactly how we are building on the legacy of the Patriot Act today.
The journey from 2001 to 2020 highlights something absolutely crucial. The USA PATRIOT Act isn't just some historical artifact. It is the literal foundation of how we secure money today. When the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2020 came around, it didn't just toss out the Patriot Act, it built directly on top of it. It remains the concrete cornerstone for all modern financial crime detection.
So what's the true, enduring legacy here? It basically boils down to 4 core concepts: demanding absolute customer transparency at onboarding, forcing intense scrutiny on those higher-risk global accounts, imposing much broader proactive AML program obligations, and enabling secure, structured information sharing. These elements permanently transform financial institutions. They went from being passive record keepers to being deputized, highly active, and cooperative participants in national financial crime detection and disruption.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. The Patriot Act successfully forged this incredible network web of financial intelligence to fight the threats of the early 2000s. But as financial crimes get increasingly digital, decentralized, and borderless today, how is this collaborative web going to need to evolve to disrupt tomorrow's illicit finance? Are the tools we built over 2 decades ago really going to be enough to catch the next generation of financial criminals? It's a huge question, and something every single professional in the financial intelligence space has to grapple with. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack the massive financial legacy of the USA Patriot Act. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.